To be able to moderate what should be a very interesting discussion this afternoon. We have 5 wonderful panelists to my left, and the topic today is sustainable value chains, with sustainability having really taken its place firmly on the business agenda and, in fact, the world's agenda. I think a lot of companies, a lot of institutions have come to understand that value chains, the various elements in getting products as simple as a T-shirt and as complicated as a Toyota Prius into the market involve an immense amount of collaboration, and that done right, the different links in the chain offer some of the greatest potential to create systemic improvements in sustainability. And this is no longer simply an academic interest with the prospect of a price on carbon, with water scarcity, and with the simple need for efficiency and strong desire for innovation. Value chains, I think, are having their moment in the sun, in a sense, as a very important strategy in terms of making progress, both in terms of efficiency in getting products to market and also in terms of sustainability. So that's the topic we're going to explore today. As I mentioned, we've got 5 excellent speakers, and I'll introduce them briefly. To my immediate left is Mayor Chen Yunshan, who is the mayor of Foshan. Foshan, for people who don't know, is the 3rd largest city in Guangdong province, behind Guangzhou and Shenzhen, and so a very important part of the mighty export engine of Guangdong province, and very glad to have him here today. Then Tarek Sultan Al-Essa, who is the chairman and managing director of Agility, which is a Kuwait-headquartered logistics firm. And I have to say we should be very honored to have Tarek here with us. He is the Iron Man of Saturday at Dalian, having just finished a session. He's here with us, and he'll be speaking in the closing plenary. So I'm going to try and go a little easy on you, Tarek. You can catch your breath. To his left is Ed Chan, who's the president and CEO of Walmart China. Walmart needs no introduction. Walmart's activities in China include a growing presence in terms of its stores, as well as very substantial procurement operations. So Walmart, as the world's largest retailer and by some measures the world's largest company, operating in a significant way in arguably the world's most dynamic economy, plays a very central role here and is doing a lot of interesting things on value chain. Michael Kunt is to his left, and Michael is with UN Environment Program as well as the Wuppertal Institute, and Michael is a leader in the topic of sustainable consumption, which is also a topic that's gaining steam as we understand the consumer angle on sustainability, which in my view has been very much underplayed. Last but not least, John Compton, who is the CEO of PepsiCo's food production in the Americas, and we're very glad to have John here with us as well. So we're going to have brief statements from each of our speakers. I'll then ask a couple of questions, and I want to get to you in the audience to ask some questions just as quickly as possible. The model we're going to follow is we're going to follow the value chain a little bit, starting with John, and since Pepsi makes various products, Tarek will talk from the perspective of moving products, Ed from the perspective of selling them, and then Mayor Chen and where are you? And Michael talking about the governmental frameworks, the policy frameworks that affect this. So we've got a mini snapshot of a value chain here with us. So John, why don't you start us off?
Sure. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I think it's fitting that we close the World Economic Forum here in Dalian with a conversation about sustainable value chains. You know, if you think about it, it was roughly a year ago today when we began facing what has now become one of the greatest economic crises that we faced in over a couple of decades. But yet, preceding this economic crisis was emerging awakening to the environmental crisis that the world is beginning to face. And when I say crisis, I don't say it to be shocking, but I say it to be realistic. The environment holistically, everything from energy to natural gas to electricity are major concern. If you're in our chair, I would say water is the #1 concern the world is facing. There are roughly 6.6 billion people in the world today. It's forecasted that by 2050 the world will have roughly 9 billion people, so 50% more people in the world. And I think we have an enormous sense of responsibility as corporate citizens, as governments, as NGOs, to come together to ensure that those next generations have access to safe, clean water, and that the water is there for the production of the crops, because, as you know, agriculture commands almost 70% of the usage of water that we have. So I was hoping coming into this conference that I would leave here, which I do, with the same sense of can-do spirit that we had about turning around the economy that we can have around getting after the environmental crisis that we're all facing. And I think to do that I would offer 3 things. One, for those of us running businesses, we have to reframe the mission of our companies to be much more grounded in a sense of purpose beyond just the financial metrics that we all are tasked with achieving. Second, I think we have to ground that sense of purpose all the way through every single employee that we have in our companies and every single stakeholder that impacts our companies. Because if we can build out a much bigger network base, we can have more ideas coming into the company to change our environmental footprint. And third, I think we have to reach out more and have a greater sense of collaboration and build a bigger sense of coalition to solve this problem. I do not view environmental sustainability as a source of competitive advantage. I believe it's the right thing to do for the world, and I'm hopeful leaving here in Dalian that the conversation will continue on a greater stage in Davos in January. Aaron?
Great. Thanks very much, John. Tarek, over to you.
Thanks. You know, one of the things that we've seen over the last year is that even within our portfolio of customers, up to 60% of our global accounts are now asking for carbon emissions as sort of a report out from a logistics service provider. And that's something that has really changed dramatically. A couple of years ago, this was not something that was even considered by our customers, let alone acted upon in terms of their decision-making process. While we're not yet there, and I still don't see companies making decisions based on supply chain and environmental metrics, I think we're starting to see the awareness increase to such an extent that hopefully we're not far away from consumers actually bringing this change to the forefront. I think one of the areas going forward that is going to be very important for us as a supply chain business and for the industry as a whole is that at the heart of this this process is a supply chain and value chain engineering methodology. And it's very important that we take the disciplines and technologies that have been developed in the supply chain and apply them to industry, leveraging the concept of environmental aspects, especially taking these into account in the way that we design the new supply chains. In the past, we've designed supply chains around efficiency, around metrics, but we haven't yet incorporated environmental aspects into them. And the technology exists. There are examples of projects that are being developed from the ground up based on environmental re-engineering methods. One example of this is the Mustar project that we're engaged on. And they're designing a city from the ground up based on sustainable supply chain issues. So hopefully we'll see more and more of these initiatives and more companies starting to take environmental aspects into consideration when they design their supply chains.
Great. Thanks very much, Tarek. And Ed Chan, you are running Walmart China, interface with the Chinese consumer. What's your perspective on on this. And of course, value chains include consumers, which have often been left out of the whole equation.
Let me start by first asking ourselves what is the most often asked question 10 years ago about China manufacturing. The question then often was, will China manufacturing going to dominate the world export? Today, the question often asked is, will the Chinese consumer be able to save the world from this financial crisis? The questions are different and has generated a lot of debate and discussion. And the point I want to make is we are sitting in this room in a country where we have the world's largest manufacturing sector. It's also the world with the largest consumers community. These two combined just offer so many opportunities in the area of sustainability. If only we can all work together, we can just advance so much in making the world a better place for us to live. I think the Chinese government has done a tremendous job, very encouraging effort, and making a lot of headway by involving the NGOs, the private sectors, in driving the agenda on sustainability. Walmart as a company, we actively participate and is highly supportive of the government agenda in sustainability. 4 years ago, we made a commitment to be a sustainable company with 3 major objectives: to be 100% on renewable energy, to produce zero waste, and to sell products that sustain resources and the environment. And in China, last year, we held a sustainability summit inviting some 1,000 suppliers to join us. During that summit, we make a number of commitments that requires us as a company to deliver those commitments in the next few years. We also set standards, expectations for our suppliers to work with us to deliver their part. We as a company think that there isn't a need to have a trade-off between the practical needs of our suppliers, our consumers, on lower prices, lower cost of products, and achieving sustainable business practices. The two can happen at the same time. We as a company in the value chain play a role toward the end of it. We are a retailer. So I'd like to cite a very good example of how we as a retailer work toward deliver that promise. In China, we have a program called Direct Farm. It's a program that we work with individual farmers. We buy direct from them. They join this program. Because it's a long-term collaboration, it enables them to have steady income. This program not only is a buy-sell program, it's also one that we provide training for our farmers to grow sustainably, to raise their yields, and to raise the quality and freshness of their products. Because of the direct dealing with the small farmers, we're able to drive the cost down, to raise the freshness, and reduce the cost on supply chain. The beauty of this program is it is also aligning with the interest of the government. The government wants us to help develop the rural economy. The government wants us to raise food safety standard. The government is also very keen on sustainability. By buying produce locally, direct from the farmers, we lower the carbon footprint. So at the end of the day, who is the biggest beneficiary? It's our consumers. They end up paying lower prices, enjoying higher quality, higher standard fresh food, and be able to do it and consume it that indirectly help to sustain the environment. I have several more examples, but I'll save that to maybe during the Q&A and answer that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. And Mayor Chen, a perfect transition as Ed Chan spoke about how Walmart's value chain enables farmers and doing so consistent with the government's priorities. What's your perspective as the mayor of Foshan?
This is a local government side to discuss the building and sustainable value chain. Foshan is located in the heartland of Pure River Delta, West Bank. It covers 3,848 square kilometers and has a population of 5.9 million. In 2008, the GDP was 433 billion RMB, rising up 15.2%. The first half of this year, the GDP was 230 billion RMB, rising 12.2%. There are three advantages, very special advantages in Foshan. First is the geographic location. Foshan is nearby to Guangzhou, not only to international airport, but also to new train station, seaport, only 45 minutes. It drive from Foshan to Hong Kong, Macau is about 2 hours. The second is Foshan has a long history and a profound culture. For example, Canton opera, Cantonese cuisine, include the martial art master Bruce Lee came from Foshan. Third, Foshan has a very well established an industrial foundation. For example, household appliances, equipment, machinery equipment, ceramics materials, include the textile and garments, food and beverage, medical and health care industry, cultural and creative industry. Also include the other hard technology, for example, TFT LCD, LED, OLED, AM OLED, something like that. So when we're talking about building the sustainable value chain, we will build up the modern industrial system. That means we will close some enterprises, transfer some enterprises, upgrade some enterprises, assert and force some enterprises to make this industry chain, industry cluster to a suitable people and suitable society. That's our goal. Now, when we're talking about this thing, we divide our area in the city to 3 parts. One part is for special international park zone. Most of the industrials will go to an industrial park zone for their business, not only reduce their cost, but also consist of industry cluster for their development. Second, we will establish the CBD in the downtown of the city, which is convenient for the public and for the society. Third, we will build up the non-developing zone. Only keep this area become the psychology and the environment protection. So I think basically the local governments are to build a sustainable value chain. We need to do that. Of course, based on this time, I would like to extend my warmest welcome for all of you to visit Foshan and invest Foshan. Thank you.
We'll join you tomorrow, if that's all right with you, in Foshan. Michael, if you can bring us home and give your perspective on this topic, working through the intergovernmental processes in terms of how sustainable consumption may be coming on the agenda more from a policy framework perspective.
Yeah, well, what I just feel is that actually sustainable consumption is coming on the policy agenda. If you look, we had a lot of discussion in terms of climate change on sectoral policies. We are looking on aluminum, on steel, on many other material, raw material, and we're asking, what is the climate impact to it? But it's broadening now. We're also starting to look actually on the other side of the coin, which is the consumption side. And why? Because we see we are creating efficiency, we are making product more efficient, but wherever we make it more efficient and more cheap, then we sell more. So that's the overall challenge I think we have to pass, and if you just calculate kind of patterns we use in the West to other countries, then you see easily we need this famous 3 to 4 planets to satisfy demands. So the challenge is bigger than just creating sustainable supply chains, and that's why I like the session title. It's actually sustainable value chains. And there are many still things we have to do with it. So let's first take the production side. I think we are on the way to look on the hotspots of different products. What I mean with hotspot is like the things you need to take care of. So for example, if you feel your product has a high carbon footprint, you have to eliminate it over time. Of course, you have to be careful with the cost side, so you do a feasibility assessment, and you're trying to eliminate the hotspots over time. Many products haven't done this yet, so it's also a question, what is actually a sustainable product via an unsustainable product? For me, a sustainable product is if it has managed to eliminate most of the hotspots, and then I'm referring to social and environmental hotspots. But I would say, roughly, my own estimation, 10% of all the products we ship and we produce worldwide have managed this to eliminate the hotspots which are necessary to be eliminated. So that, of course, might call even for choice editing. You see this is getting even more popular, and we are discussing it now also with the World Business Council for Sustainable Development. We are discussing it with Consumer International. And next year we will have a United Nations process on sustainable consumption. We are trying to agree on a 10-year framework of programs, and choice editing might come up as a terminology. So do we have to take out those products which are unsustainable? There's still a question mark. We still have to discuss this, because the question is, how long can we afford to have a lot of unsustainable products, having in mind, again, demand is growing worldwide. But then let's also look on the consumption side. There's another challenge for most consumers. They're confused. There's a lot of information out there about sustainability. You can call it the sustainability spam. Try to figure out yourself, go to a supermarket and try to figure out if it's a sustainable product or not within 5 seconds. I can bet with you, I win a beer, that you will not be able to find it out in 5 seconds. So you have either to trust into the brand, into the retailer, that it's all sustainable, or you have to figure out yourself. And consumers still have a hard time on it. And consumers are basically also sometimes not willing to do so because they don't understand sustainability in some cases right away. It's not very emotional to talk about all these technical aspects of sustainability. They want just a safe product, a healthy product, a fit product, a product with high quality. So bringing a bit more emotional side also to sustainability, involving designer, involving artists, I think it's also a key challenge which we have to pass, getting away from only the technical discussion of sustainability and making it as emotional as possible so that people also feel a willingness to invest time and buy a sustainable product. But that's, I guess, there again we are with governments, we are with schools, and we still have something to do, even to try to figure out what is a sustainable lifestyle. We had yesterday a session. I asked, if you can spend next week a day sustainable, how would you do it? You know, how would it look like? It's still a question you might keep in your mind. How you spend this one day? What's the type of clothes you wear? What's the type of food you eat? What's the type of mobility do you use? And I guess there are many question marks in your mind still. And if they stay in your mind, it's hard for business and consumer actually to figure out what is a sustainable value chain.
Michael, thank you. I think those are very good words and very important. Let me ask a couple of questions to get the discussion started. And let me start with one that might be a little bit inconvenient, but I think is very important. And that is that the extended supply chains that we now rely upon have developed during a period when energy prices have been extremely low, credit has been very easy to obtain, barriers to trade have been diminishing, and in addition to energy prices, other commodities, natural resources have also been relatively affordable. Most signs suggest that all of those conditions are fading or leaving. Do we think that the supply chain of tomorrow is really going to look anything like the supply chain of today? Is the very concept of the global supply chain sustainable right now?
I'll take a stab at that first. I mean, I think you're posing the right question, because as we address the environmental issues that we're facing, we might look at the price of oil, to your point, which I think almost 50% of the commodities around the world have some derivative tied to the price of oil. So as oil goes up, one of the things that many of us do is we look for alternative sources. One might be biofuels. We may move to biofuels and then incur another unintended consequence, where biofuels use almost 20 times the amount of water to generate that electricity or energy. So I think you have to look at the total supply chain end to end. I think you have to look at all the parts combined. I think every manufacturing facility we have at PepsiCo, we are re-looking today to ask, can we make that more LEED certified, like a plant that we've done here in Chongqing in China? Can we reduce water and electricity by 20 to 25% in the next 2 to 3 years? And yes, I do look at it as the right thing to do for the environment, but it is also a way to reduce cost in your business so that you can take that money to stimulate growth again. Because in the end, we want growth in our businesses.
Tarek? Yeah.
I think it's clear that customer preferences as well as regulatory changes are going to change the way that supply chains and value chains need to be optimized. I think going forward, the supply chains and value chains of the past were optimized to either deliver the lowest cost or a time parameter, but nowhere in that equation was anything in there about sustainability or the environment. So we're going to be going through a process that starts at the design stage, working collaboratively with supply chain engineers to look at introducing this element of the environment in the way that we design services and products, and to make choices about how we do things going forward. So I do think that companies that are caught flat-footed in this area stand to lose substantial, both a substantial market opportunity, but also perhaps even face the wrath of regulators. So it's very critical now to really look at this and do it over again.
And that sounds to me less about a sustainability agenda and more just about navigating a very, very different business climate, right?
Yes,
yeah, Ed?
Yeah. Commodity prices go up and down, so don't know what will happen in 12 months' time. But I'd like to add a perspective from the management of waste within the value chain. One thing when we look at as a retailer, that what happened in our stores is only a small part of total sustainable value chain. A whole lot of that happens upstream before bringing into our stores, and many of those happen after it exits our stores. We have a concept called Sustainability Value Network. That is an open forum inviting participations of our suppliers, our own associates, as well as NGOs, thought leaders, to come and share with us what they think are on the strategy side that we can do better. Waste is such an area that if we all work together, there will be a lot of opportunities on creating values in the value chain. Take some small examples. We love to celebrate small achievement as a company. We work with a company called Costco, making a baby car seat. And one of the simple innovations that we have done collaboratively with them is we get rid of the cardboard boxes. By doing so, we save 9,000 trees a year, save 400 loads, and the customers end up paying less and replacing that we put it in a plastic bag, and the customers can see the product much easier and end up with selling more. And that is a good example of how we can reduce waste coming into the stores and create benefits for our customers. And there are so many other examples, such as by focusing on the waste going out of the store, we can change it from a cost center to a profit center. In the case of China, for example, compared to a few years ago, because of this focus, we are now selling 30% more waste to certified recycle company. As a result, our associated stores are celebrating this little achievement that is great for the environment and yet also help them to run their store better and more profitably.
So, Michael, I think you wanted to jump in as well.
Yeah, well, I again would like to benchmark the terminology sustainable value chains against something, because I need to know where I'm heading for. And I need to see what kind of challenges do we have out there, which kind of challenges do we have to pass. We need to feed much more people in the future. We need to provide more mobility to different people. We need to buy and build construction buildings to give more living space. And if we see these challenges and the rapid development in these areas, and we compare on the other side the rather incremental improvements on the supply chains, and we, of course, also see governmental policy related to it, which is also not rewarding yet radical changes, then I guess we still have to drive a bit faster with the engine. And of course, we have to look on radical innovation, which is always very difficult to do so. You know, you need to imagine suddenly you build a house completely different. You say, for example, I built a house with a factor 10 less resource needs. And then you need to involve the architecture, you need to involve the guys who are building the house, the same for infrastructure, maybe the same to food. If I say to myself, I want in the future to consume a factor less in terms of food, how can I do so? And this question, I think, still needs to be answered. So kind of conceptual ideas, but also visual things have to be created. So how can you imagine to live in a sustainable economy if you haven't been living in a sustainable space, let's say? So maybe we need to create some spaces out there, like a house, like a hotel, where you're going for holidays, where you can actually feel, touch the food you would eat if you would be more sustainable, the mobility mode you would use. So trying to visualize this also a bit more, again, to go into this touch, feel, see, need area of sustainability for also creating more radical ideas, creativity, for actually more radical innovation as well.
From the local government, I would like to exchange the position to thinking about this thing. For the government, also we need to take responsibility for protecting environment, not only for the water, energy, but also for the other things. But now I would like to take two words. Most of us to know that. That's a shareholder and a stakeholder. Shareholder is when enterprises do something, the most important is get profit to in charge, to get responsibility for the shareholders. But stakeholder not only thinking about something for the shareholder, but also thinking about something for the employee, not only for supplier, but also for the customers, not only for the public, but also for the government and the society. Not only thinking about short-term goal, but also for thinking about the long-term goal. So when we're talking about this question, I think for the government side, we need to do something, especially for the protecting environment, for the water, air, and the other security. But for the macroeconomy, for the enterprises, we need to take a responsibility to do something for the public, for the society, especially for the protecting environment, I think.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to ask one more question, and then we're going to go to all of you. So if you want to begin thinking about a question you'd like to ask, you'll get the chance in just a moment. But let me pose a question. The notion that we have value chains with lots of partners, you might want to think about a value chain as a social network. And I'm wondering whether we're going to see new processes for product innovation to accomplish some of the things that you've all been talking about, so that products are designed much more collaboratively in almost an open source way, bring value chain partners together to develop products jointly, which would be a radical shift. Do you see that coming down the road?
I think we absolutely do, and I'll let Ed build on this. But obviously, we're in the food and beverage business. We sell liquids. So could there be an opportunity to solidify the liquid? We could solidify the liquid, but we would need a partner, to your point, to be with us along the way back into consumers' homes, okay, as a way to get carbonation into the home. We would need a retail partner to work with us to make that happen. So I think you're asking the right question. If we totally want to rethink and be transformative in our thinking, which I think, given the crisis that we're in, we need to think this way, knowing that it's going to take time to make a substantial change, that we're going to need a whole list end-to-end of partnerships to do it.
Anyone else? Yep.
Yes. I think the approach on collaboration is very important. The alignment of the key stakeholders in the whole value chain process. We work on the assumptions that without collaboration with our suppliers and without the support of the government, this would not have been possible. A great example would be the MOUs we signed with ACCA 21 of the Ministry of Science and Technology, that Walmart helped provide resources and funding to develop the capability in sustainability for our suppliers. So this year, in April, we invited some 200 managers in 60, 70 suppliers, sit down together in our home offices in Shenzhen, discussing how we can work together even on the suppliers' factories, how we create ideas so they could run their factories a lot more energy efficient, how they can reduce water usage, reduce waste in their factories, and how we could reduce packaging. So that's the collaboration with the government, with the suppliers. And in turn, as the point I make a couple of times is that naturally we'll collaborate with the consumers because we end up selling better quality, lower prices, sustainable products to them. So you almost have a virtuous cycle of gains, wins for everybody involved. So it's the whole spirit of collaboration, understanding the needs of all the stakeholders.
We may move to a value circle as opposed to a value chain. Right. Tarek?
Yeah. I think one thing that's very important to keep in mind is, as a consumer, I think there's a lot of confusion out there. It's very difficult for consumers to walk into a supermarket or make a purchase decision in an informed way, because they're often relying on either today the way it works, if they are trying to make decisions that they think are correct with respect to their choices about the environment, they have to do so by really spending the time to educate themselves, and it's no easy answer. I mean, one example would be a guy choosing, I'm going to buy a steak that's a piece of meat that's come from a local farmer as opposed to one that's been flown in. Well, maybe that consumer didn't know that 50% of carbon emissions actually comes from livestock. So if we really want to get this thing to move in the right direction, we have to impact the way that consumers behave. And the first step to doing that is giving them a model, giving them labels that transparently identify what carbon decisions, what environmental decisions they are making in their product choices. That's not a difficult thing to do. I think once we get there, I think we'll start impacting consumer decisions on the margin. But the key is the consumer, because that will drive then, that'll take, for example, our subset of customers, where 60% of our global accounts are now asking for this information, maybe to prepare themselves for what's coming. That'll start forcing their decision-making as to the way they procure and design their supply chains. Because once the consumers start demanding it, everything else will have to be designed accordingly.
And reliable information depends on a picture of the entire value chain. Michael, and then the Mayor.
Well, I like this terminology you just pinpointed, actually, sustainable value webs or networks. I think that fits to the idea pinpointed on radical innovation rather. And also if we look in a moment on base of the pyramid approaches, so if you'd like to serve actually the poor as well, what happens often, because, you know, existing functions, market functions, which are normally in place, are in some countries not in place, distribution systems or other systems. So you need to create actually this web solutions, rather sometimes with small actors to actually reach the final customer in a way. And also, I believe, if I look for the future, I feel in terms of sustainability, if we see a sustainable economy beyond a sustainable value chain, we will have to think about local solution much more than we did in the past. So a local solution and sustainability goes often hand in hand, if you see. So just take products like detergents or so in your mind. If you go to certain countries, they don't have yet a wastewater treatment system, as an example. So you need to find a local solution for the local problem. And I think, again, that needs to be seen also in this web approach. So yes, there's certainly profit to be generated, but maybe on a more local level than and sustainable level than in most other cases, if you just sell globalized products, so to say.
One thing is important, I think, let's keep an equal competitive environment for all of the enterprises, not only for the customers, but also for the SME and the joint enterprises, I think.
And presumably you have a strong interest in seeing SME development as an engine of growth and prosperity for your city.
Yeah. For my city, not only we give some policy to support, to make a good equal environment to support joint enterprises, but also we give our policy to support SME. For example, SME is a lack of money, so we connect with the bank and the mortgage company to consist of mortgage firm to loan to the SME to support their development. That means we encourage them to become stronger and large, then they can competitive with the other enterprises in the market to do their business.
Thank you very much. We now will go to you for questions, and I see a hand up right here. If you can identify yourself as you're asking the question, that would be great.
My name is Mark Zawadzki. I work for Russian Business Magazine Expert in China. I have a question for Mr. Chan, and maybe Mayor Chen may comment as well. when I speak mostly off the record with the executives from foreign companies working in China, they sometimes complained that Chinese companies...
Excuse me, sir,
sure.
maybe speak just a little more slowly, so...
Okay, sure.
Thank you.
Like when I speak mostly off the record with foreign executives, like working for foreign companies in China, they sometimes complain that Chinese players are playing by a different set of rules here in China than their foreign counterparts. Because like Chinese companies, they don't have to report to the foreign shareholders, to different NGOs, to consumer rights groups. So my question is, do you feel that the interest in sustainability among local players, among your local rivals on the market, is lower than maybe your interest? And the following question is, what is the correlation between sustainability and profitability, especially on China market? Does being sustainable makes you more profitable and more competitiveness, and more competitive or less, especially on the midterm and short term? Thank you.
Thank you. Ed Chan and Mayor Chen.
Okay. You have two questions. I would like to answer your first question. I have nothing but just appreciative of the guidance and the support of the Chinese government at central level, at the local level, how they have made it so business friendly, and providing the laws and regulations for us to be able to conduct our trade in a very positive manner. I think our role as a player in the retail field here is about working collaboratively with our partners and even with our retail competitors, that if there are good practices to share on sustainability, we can share with them. We don't hold those as just proprietary, because by doing good things for the industry, for the environment, I think being able to open it up and doing it with the others, you can only advance it much faster than you would do it on your own. The second question is, I alluded earlier in my examples, there isn't really a trade-off that if you want and pursue sustainable business practices, that you end up having to raise your prices to your consumers, you have to raise the cost of production of the suppliers. You can actually achieve lower product cost, lower cost on supply chain, and in turn translate into lower prices to the customers. But you have to start that journey by working with the suppliers on creating opportunities. The few examples I cited, that's one. The other example would be, we are the first company to use LED lighting for general lighting in the entire store, with a store in Beijing last year. And what we discovered is several benefits. Number one, the lighting looks good on products. Number two, it saves tremendous energy for our stores. So we actually have shown a good business case for us to run stores cheaper. And third is the whole sustainability initiative has given rise to so many new technologies, new industries, and the company that work with us on producing that set of LED lighting, they're investing in more production lines because it's a whole new innovation and is rapidly commercializing it. So sustainable business practices in itself can be very profitable, but you have to do it by collaborating your effort with your suppliers, with other stakeholders, and need to align that with the government's priorities. And we are very lucky that we can all achieve that in this country.
Well, I think that's an interesting answer that also gets to the question about whether Chinese or companies from other locations look at things differently. If there are profits to be gained, they apply equally to Chinese and non-Chinese companies and presumably are attractive to everyone. Mr. Mayor?
In Foshan, Guangdong province, our total economic volume, 57% come from the private company in local enterprises. 67% come from international investors. Only 7% come from SOE. Local government trade all of that not only come from the local enterprises, but also come from the international investors are equal. Help them to solve some problem, to develop, to promote their business well in Foshan. So I think based on our law and our method, we will do this well, equal method, equal way, and continuously. I think it's not much problem to different from the local enterprises, from international projects.
Thank you. We've got a question right up here in the third row. Yeah, Peggy, do you want to stand up? Yeah.
Hi, my name is Peggy Liu from JUICE, a nonprofit working in China to change the way we create and use energy here. My question is on the feasibility of carbon taxes on consumer products. So I think this is a question for Walmart and Pepsi. And I know that Walmart is starting surveying of their suppliers on, I think it's carbon emissions of products, but I'm wondering, how feasible is this? Because without this database, you can't really get to a carbon tax on consumer products. And you talked about open sourcing earlier. Are you going to make that database freely available to other people? Thank you.
Ed, do you want to start?
Ed, do you want to start?
I'll start. It's a big subject, I have to say. I don't know if I can even be qualified to answer that question. It requires what you mentioned, the database, and also legislation across different sovereignty. But what I want to answer is what you refer in your question is we have started introducing a sustainability product index, and the phase one is very simple. It's really about engaging our suppliers community by asking them a set of 15 questions on sustainability practices as a starting point. The challenge, I think you probably have included some of the answers in your questions, is it's going to be very extensive. It requires a lot of work with all the stakeholders in private sectors and also in the governments, how to achieve ultimately what you want to address in your question. But I think it's something that is very big. It could be one day, but I probably will not have a complete answer to that. Yes, John?
So as you might imagine, as someone running a company, I'm not a big fan of taxation. In the analogy of carrots and sticks, I'd much rather use carrots than sticks to incent the right behaviors. You heard Ed talk about the goals at Walmart. He talked about renewable energy, he talked about zero waste, and he talked about selling sustainable products. Well, I'm in the consumer products business, so if I'm going to have a company in the next 5 to 10 years, I better change my practices, because Walmart's not going to sell my products if they're not sustainable. Getting to a quantification, like the Carbon Trust logo that's in Europe, as you know, I think is the right first step. And many of us have already participated in that in terms of quantifying what our footprint is today and then setting very aggressive goals for achieving reductions in the future. And the Carbon Trust logo goes away if you're not able to achieve that. So I think you have to build trust here and hold each of us accountable to achieving a better tomorrow.
Okay, we've got time, I think, for just one more question. Actually, let me see if there are 2 questions. We'll take them at once, and then we'll try to come up with some concise answers. Let's start with the one right here, and please raise your hand if there's another question somewhere in the audience.
Martin Schöller, Germany. I know that Walmart and PepsiCo is using returnable packaging as a way to eliminate huge amounts of packaging waste, returnable transit packaging. Walmart in the US and Pepsi all over the world. Is China already in the state that this can also be applied here, or is there more dialogue, infrastructure, and political interaction needed for that?
Yeah, I'll take it first from the PepsiCo side, then Ed, maybe you want to build to that. But
John, just let me see if there's one more question, and then we can take them together. Anyone want to ask a question, or should we make this the last one? Okay, we've got one right here from Mohammed.
It's Mohammed Jafar from Kuwait, and my question is for Mr. Chan. As a retailer, you said earlier that you worked with a supplier of car seats to remove toolboxes, and that generated more sales. Are you prepared to go the extra mile as consumers are hooked on the latest version of software or computer? We are leaving a large trail of computers and phones behind us, and these come through your shops. Are you prepared to tell a supplier, look, this product you've just developed, it doesn't really offer much difference or value. It's used up a lot of energy in coming. We're not going to put it on our shelves. Come up with something that's drastically different before we're able to put this on our shelves. I think the durability of consumer goods used to be 10 years, 5 years. Now it's 6 months. So if you're making 6 billion telephones to supply the entire world population in a few years' time, if that's done on every 6 months, there's a burden on the environment. Who will take the first step? If the consumer wants the latest technology, will the retailers, will the manufacturers, who will take that first step to say, whoa, let's slow down?
I have a question. Now back to you, John.
Yeah, well, let me come back to address the question about returnable packaging, because I think it's a good one. Clearly, most markets around the world for us, we have go-to-market systems that go direct from our plants to our customers. And anywhere we have that, we're going to want to get the cartons back to reuse them through our system. Frito-Lay North America, a company I ran for a while, at one point we were getting 4 trips per carton. We're now getting up to 10 trips per carton. So you can imagine the amount of carbon that's come out because we keep reusing these cartons. The second thing is just the packaging film that we're using. We now have a breakthrough that we're going to introduce in the U.S. and soon, as costs come down around the world, that will have compostable packaging so that the litter problem will go away over time.
I appreciate lots of questions being addressed to Walmart. I think what that demonstrates is, as a retailer, we have so many opportunities to become a focal point of linking different stakeholders to have an agenda on sustainability. The 2 questions, one is on packaging. Yes, we have a number of programs on packaging reduction with our suppliers, and we provide our facilities, for example, in packaging fairs, inviting suppliers to join us, providing free to packaging company to showcase their newest technology. So we are on a journey of packaging reduction in China as much as the rest of the Walmart operations in wherever we operate, because it's just such a good business case for ourselves, for our suppliers, as well as for our customers, and also very good for the environment. On the question of the fast changing consumer trend, I do have personal experience. Usually my latest adoption of technologies from my girls. I have a six months old iPod that's used one from my twin girls. I actually have 2 iPods. We are not a predictor sometimes very good in consumer trends, but we listen to our customers and follow what they want, and we want to work with suppliers. Our suppliers usually will share what they think, and usually are better than us in forecasting the needs of our customers. And it's that collaboration that we introduce new products. Most often are not made by us, but we provide the outlet for those to be experienced by our customers. But one of the points that you allude to in your question is how we can work together to for example, dispose those waste, old computers, old TVs, by using our outlets and our communication to our customers, and do it in a way that we can manage the waste disposal reduce the waste. I think there's a lot a retailer can do collaboratively with suppliers. Simple example of we do a lot of promotions of working with suppliers when they launch new products, and then take old ones from our customers and then give them a dollar rebate based on they bring back old TV, we'll sell them a new TV with a few hundred RMB cheaper. Working with suppliers, so there are plenty of opportunities on waste management.
Well, thank you for the good questions. I want to thank the audience. We're going to need to close here because we've got a closing plenary beginning momentarily, and I want to give everybody the chance to get there. So please join me in thanking our 5 wonderful panelists for a very, very good discussion this afternoon.